All right, Katie, so I want you to act as the advisor you ultimately are, but not just for your company, not just at Rare Beauty. Think about CEOs in the C-suite everywhere in this whole wide world. What would you counsel them on? What would you remind them that they may not know about marketing, that they fundamentally don't understand, but probably should? I mean, it's a big question.
It's a big question. And as you asked it, so many things came to mind. And the first one, and I think perhaps while it's unique to Rare Beauty, it has shaped and informed my opinion overall. How important empathy is and compassion in marketing. And how much, I don't think I would have said that 5 years ago. I think as I've gotten to know the younger generations and as we've marketed to them, as I've understood the newer platforms, as the platforms to market have continuously evolved, if you don't have compassion and understanding and empathy for your consumer, marketing is never going to land.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I was sitting with McKinsey yesterday, who just is releasing their year 2 version of their CEO CMO survey. And they said something like, only 15% of CMOs think that they are customer-centric in the development of their strategy. And I probed and I said, Does that mean we should be firing 85% of CMOs because 100% of CMOs should be customer-centric, to your point?
Yes.
And actually, it's because they don't have the access to the ownership of the customer because it's so buy and try and quadfurcated within a chief customer officer, chief marketing officer, chief experience officer, chief revenue officer. Nobody owns it. And therefore that customer centricity gets diluted across an organization, right? And people see slices of it, but no holistic view.
Well, what are we doing if not for someone to do something? And that's whether that's B2B, B2C, but ultimately marketing is looking for someone to do some sort of action. And you can't just tell someone to do something anymore. You have to engage with them. You have to build that relationship with anyone.
Okay, so I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think what you said is so important, right? The end result is an action, right?
Absolutely.
Which is purchase.
Yes.
Let's just call it purchase.
Right.
To get someone to purchase, you have to persuade and seduce even.
Yes.
Right? Inform, educate, inspire, lots of adjectives.
All of the above. How do you, so thinking of the consumer category specifically, and let alone beauty, it's so crowded. And there's so many actions informing a person's decision. I mean, I don't need to say to this audience that the funnel is gone.
All kinds of fucked up.
Pardon my language, Mom. All kinds of messed up. But yes. So, but even look at yourself. I say this to my team all the time. Look at how do you make a decision? And you think like we are the consumers. As a human being, have an action every single day. What gets you to make that action? And when you realize it is a multitude of things, sometimes it is one person on TikTok who you just saw and they said, oh, this, what have you, is the best product out there. I'll go buy it. Sure, we all have. We all have clicked to buy on Amazon or Sephora, what have you. Or you take the time and research. So all of those things are informing, entertaining. Like there's just no one answer. And so then back to the earlier, if you don't have that human connection, if you aren't sort of understanding that someone is being bombarded with so many messages, understanding that you have to do product marketing and brand marketing, you have to speak to a product's point of difference, while also your brand must stand for something, because you don't know what's ultimately going to drive that action or drive that end result.
Okay. So you've said so many things that are important. I know I'll forget the latter one, but not the first one. So I'm going to start there, which is so many, you don't always know often which thing is going to be the ultimate trigger for purchase. So how do you tell, yes. How do you help a CEO and a CFO who look for certainty about the uncertainty that just wraps around the human condition?
Oh man, that is the $1 million question. And thankfully I have a team who are quite understanding and very close to, in our case specifically, so much is driven via social conversation and digital conversation. So we do look at earned media
But that's
value.
not unique to you at all, right? That's just 2025.
The more someone talks about your brand, the more ultimately something will happen, an action will happen, a purchase will happen. I over communicate and I try to share and explain as much as possible to my team, to the CFO, to our CEO, this is what's happened this week. We look at it on a weekly basis because for that very reason, we don't know. But what's been tough is that when we've seen the biggest spikes of conversation or the biggest spikes of sales, which is exciting, usually that's due to virality. And the hardest part, and every marketer knows this, you can't plan for virality. But man, that is difficult because I have people in my peers who will say to my team, go viral today. And they think it's funny. And I see my entire team either roll their eyes or you can see the stress like shoot up their back and like their shoulders raised to their ears. And it's anything I can do to explain to my peers and my boss, okay, we can't plan for that. Let's look at like, how do you then break down why something does go viral and how do you create those environments to potentially happen. But what's been really difficult is then how do you plan for that from an inventory perspective, from a anniversary sales perspective? That's difficult. And in beauty, it's more difficult and exciting than ever thanks to platforms like TikTok and Reels.
Well, I used to shudder when I was on the agency side and you get a brief, we want to create a viral video. I was like, I want to be 6'4". Right. That's a consequence of something. It's not an objective.
Well, what's been interesting in the beauty industry specifically, and all industries, I think when things used to go viral, I believe it was maybe more for talk value and how exciting in the brand. So it was brand awareness. But now these products go viral, and because the funnel, I assume, has collapsed, the sales spike. And what else has been very interesting is, thankfully, we've developed a brand that people are loyal to, but because of this virality, it's much more difficult to create loyalty, to drive loyalty, because the next thing will go viral and she'll buy that.
Well, I'm wondering if you look at the last 10 instances that you guys went viral. Okay. What number of them were because of something you did from a marketing perspective as opposed to something your customer did with the product, just to take it down to least common, they unboxed it, put it on, and raved. Yes. Right? Like, are you seeing? I mean, the quote unquote consumer is a part of our marketing organization 1,000%. Today, for better or worse.
Oh, 100%. And I think that's why we have I have a huge community department, and that's another thing to explain to my CFO and CEO, why it's so important, because they are developing that one-on-one relationship with our community, as well as with a huge creator department, because those relationships matter, because I know the content can come from the community, can come from the creators, which will go viral, thereby driving sales. Right. But then we also do all of our social content in-house because we know the power of that. And I think the exciting thing about trying to create viral content in-house and working with your team so closely is to say, okay, this is to answer your question of what went viral. When sometimes we will have viral content that we organically created. And what I love to see is when it goes viral for a product point of difference. So it's something that ultimately helps the product stick out within the marketplace. But you don't realize it. For the untrained eye, oh, somehow that just told me that this is the most pigmented blush in the market and it's going to last for 12 hours, but it wasn't a typical ad. It wasn't like a P-page video that was just your basic features and benefits of the product. It was actually something that was funny and got people talking and went viral and had millions of views. But deep down, oh wait, that blush is going to last all day long. So it's a mix, and we try to get all consumer video, community videos, creators, as well as our own.
I'm assuming that's a bit of a Venn diagram, right?
Yes,
Creator, community, consumer in one. I still haven't forgotten the question I want to get back to, but you sparked something else that I think is interesting, which is the beauty category as a whole has, obviously because of the nature of the products you sell and the brands you build as a category, has done a spectacular job over and over and over again, in particular some of the smaller, more agile brands, of immediately everybody talks about moving at the speed of culture. I kind of want to punch myself in the face when I hear it, or them. Just kidding, everybody. But you all, as a category, move that way.
Yeah.
What do you think the beauty category understands about that maybe other even consumer-facing categories do not?
That's really interesting.
Or what do you do that is different?
I'm thinking, because it's true. And thank you for saying that, because I've often thought, gosh, what beauty does, if other brands, I've recognized that, and it feels, I don't want to sound self-serving, but it's collectively as an industry, we move quick. I think we're great storytellers. I think because, and listen, rare beauty products are really good, but it's tough to stand out. Is a lipstick, a blush, a blush? Depends on who you ask. To me, I think they're all different, and I can tell you how, but maybe others don't. So you have to become great at storytelling. And I'm sorry to interrupt, but a
lipstick's a lipstick, a blush is a blush within degrees.
Commoditized.
Exactly. And that's not unique to beauty, right? Across product and service categories, I don't care if you're selling $1 billion consulting contract. Because
maybe we're more competitive and we know we got to figure it out fast.
But I think the lesson, I mean, doesn't everybody, right, have to figure it out fast? Because across categories, across industries around the world, there's just a whole lot of good enough products. I could pick consultancy A versus consultancy B. They're both good, right? Agency A versus they're good.
Yeah.
Deodorant A versus deodorant. It's good enough.
It's good enough.
Actually, deodorant's a category where you tend not to switch.
You got to find your one. Yeah. You don't want to become immune to one. Certainly not here.
Certainly is.
So I think, this is a tough one because I think part of it's very personal to what we do at Rare Beauty as well. Or what maybe it's more personal to me. I really pay attention to attention, myself included. And I noticed in 2019 that I was spending so much time on TikTok. I noticed.
In 2019's, I should actually just give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
And now I want to just give our audience a quick bio.
Who is she?
Who is this woman I'm talking to? I've said Katie, but I haven't said Katie, who I am sitting today. And thank you for being here. Katie Welch, you have been the CMO at Rare Beauty since 2019, which is before it launched. And before that, you had you were GM at The Honest Company, CMO at Hourglass Cosmetics, and amongst other things, EVP of Global Brands at Weber Shandwick, not Sandwich. And so thanks for being with us. Okay, you were saying.
Thank you. I'm so grateful to be here. Seth knows I'm his biggest fan.
Yeah. My mom likes me.
Oh, we love you. So I pay, and I believe others in beauty do the same. We really pay attention to attention. And for instance, TikTok is an interesting example because I remember how much our attention was going to, but I didn't see it as, it's just a dancing app. Oh, look at those people dancing. No.
Was it TikTok in 2019 or was it still Musical.ly?
Yes, it was TikTok in 19. Maybe towards the end. I don't remember. Maybe 18 it was still Musical.ly, but don't quote me. I certainly don't. I don't remember. But I remember peers saying, oh, it's just people are just dancing. Well, I was fascinated by the creativity, even the creativity in the dancing and the creators, and then watching how people were creating these films. But I knew this was going to be important for certainly for Rare Beauty as Gen Z, young millennial target. But I also knew that I didn't want to be the boss that was like, that's not right for our brand, or I don't understand it. So I really dove in and tried to understand the platform itself and started creating content myself and not dancing, God forbid. But I think that helped me learn, understand the platform, understand what went viral, understand why people were creating, and understanding not just why people were creating. I was watching the communities form. And so I think as a marketer, when you pay attention to attention, where your attention is going, if you're curious and you care, you ask why. And it was the communities that were forming and how people were going viral and the creativity that was coming up on this platform. And then when you understand that sort of magic that's happening, then you have to look at, okay, what's our brand? How would this work? How do we do this authentically? And then because this brand, the way it is, overthought content or like pre-planned content, it's not going to work. Yeah. You have to develop this agility, this speed of culture as much as ever it's overstated. It's true.
Yeah. It is overstated because it's true. I love the phrase "pay attention to attention." And it's
But what's next? Now I'm nervous. Where? I mean, Substack, sure. ChatGPT,
You guys created
sure.
a Substack, right?
Yeah, we did.
What I think is so interesting about that, kind of more conceptually than what you all are doing specifically, is it reminds internal audiences that there's all kinds of ways to connect with an audience.
Yes.
And super interesting to see the written word.
Yes.
Which is, say, the expression of a brand point of view start to play a really interesting role in an increasing number. It's still small, but an increasing number of marketers' mixes. But now I want to get back to that question. Okay. You were talking about how you tell your team, like, pay attention to how you make decisions, how you decide what to buy.
Yeah.
I talk a lot about how the CEO and the CFO deny their own lived experience. Exactly to your point, right? How'd these shoes get on my feet, bag in my hand, car in my driveway? Why do you think they don't understand from their own experience as human beings how, at least more intuitively, how human beings make decisions, right?
Intuition is more difficult.
Yeah.
It's easier to have a formula. It's easier to have the data prove this is go left versus go right, or what's right and wrong.
But do you think the data proves that?
I think data can inform.
Exactly.
Certainly. It can inform, it can help. So that's my job, or our job as marketers, to then explain. Data informed, that helps me get through, get across the finish line sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes I have to have a really compelling case.
Yes. I mean, I think bit of a digression, but I think one of the biggest challenges with data in the marketing industry, actually, I should say in business, because marketing is a driver of business, or at least it's supposed to be, is that we've let data become a proxy for judgment. We've given away our judgment, right? That's and data's the answer. No, it's not the fucking answer. It informs a decision. It doesn't it shouldn't make a decision. There's also going back to what you were saying in the beginning, there's an interesting, I think, implicit perspective on the relationship between what I do today and what somebody's going as a marketer, as a business, and what somebody, let's call them consumer or customer, might do not just tomorrow, the action, but a year from now. How do you think about, short and long, and the balance? And I hate the conversation about short and long because it forgets there's also near, right? We forget the middle. But how do you think about time frames?
I think that's one of the most difficult, actually, because especially when speaking with our leadership team, looking at weekly sales, people want results right away, but knowing we're in a unique position, like knowing I have to build a brand for the long haul that's here to stand. And when we launched in 2020, there wasn't so much of this celebrity brand, or at least when I joined and we were starting in 2019, there wasn't so much of a celebrity brand conversation. It certainly has evolved. My goodness, it's grown. So many have launched.
For those who don't know, let our viewers know, our listeners and viewers know who the celebrity that is the founder.
The founder and creator of Rare Beauty is Selena Gomez, and so
I've heard of her.
She's a dream, the most heartfelt, wonderful person to work for. And I feel lucky to bring her vision to life, truly. But when I first met her, even like the things that she talked about, I asked her, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to create a beauty brand? And not just me, the marketing team, all of it, the company, we need to make sure that continues to be, that message continues to be delivered, lived, experienced, because otherwise then if you think short term, then we fall into the commoditization of beauty. Then we fall into that is just a blush, just a lip gloss, what have you. I mean, our one blush, because we have 1% of sales that goes to the Rare Impact Fund, which we also started, supports 30 grantees around the world in mental health. This one blush has raised $20 million for mental health in the last 5 years. This one blush supports over 400,000 young people, help them grant access to mental health services. So that helps your blush stand out as much as it also is going to last on your cheeks for 12 hours.
So let's go.
So I need to do both long-term thinking brand building as well as the short-term driving sales, because that's what sales
All
and
right,
finance
and
wants to see.
So putting rare beauty aside,
Sorry.
and
Yes.
even your own experience,
Sure.
Of course, every business needs to drive sales near term
Yes.
and build for the long term. Exactly for the reason you so well said, which is otherwise you're just commoditizing. Let's make it about the CFO for the minute, not your CFO, but a CFO. They seem, painting with a broad brush, not to understand that at fucking all, right? Like, show me the numbers and show them to me right now.
Yes.
And long-term be damned. You have a perspective on why that is? Not long-term be damned. That's unfair. But they're not concerned with the long-term. They're concerned with this quarter.
Yeah, because they have quarterly goals to hit.
Right.
Right.
But next year's quarterly goals will be harder to hit
if we don't.
If they're only on promotion this quarter.
Oof. Right.
Right? Because while they do have quarterly goals, they don't understand they're going to have quarterly goals in perpetuity. Therefore, they need to be preparing the quarter a year from now, today too. They don't get that. I don't think. Again, speaking generally, an audience, if you disagree, like hit me up. I'd love examples of CFOs who do.
No, I think you're right. And that is what makes this job so difficult, truly. Like is understanding both of those sort of time frames, because we have to live in both, because I think we do understand the long term and the long-term impact. The other thing that I think is tough on the CMO position or crucial for the CMO position is then how do you explain that and teach not only the rest of your company, but your entire team? Because everyone needs to understand that and sort of be on that same page and working towards those things. So for instance, if you want, when we're so agile and we're responding to trends, I understand why you respond to one trend, because that's working right now in whatever platform, whatever medium, whatever industry.
Yeah.
But is that good for the long term? And that's like that's what I worry about a lot. Also with my own team, because sure, that's a cool thing to do right now, and maybe that will go viral, but is that truly right for the brand?
So let me ask a question, which is, because you move so quickly, somebody comes to you with an idea, and in that moment, you have to make a decision, because if it is okay for now and then, and you don't move, the moment's gone.
Yes.
So do you have and it may be an intuitive methodology framework, kind of like how you balance your immediate evaluation of an idea to see if it's good for today and tomorrow?
Oh man, that's a great question. I'd like to say it's my gut, and that I've honed my gut instinct over the last, I won't say the number of years.
Fewer years than me.
Yeah, 26 years. And I also have people within the company, and this is always the case, with who's a point of view I really trust. But recently, my team has been coming to me with ideas that even I have to be like, okay, hold on, walk me through this one more time. Like, it is moving so fast, and sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. I guess
is inevitable.
It's inevitable, and you have to be a little fearless to do that. And it's tough. That's a tough quality. Not everyone has that.
Well, by the way,
you just got to say,
that's why you were one of
it.
our entrepreneurial CMO 50s 2 years ago, because of that fearless attitude. Because if you're not fearless, if you aren't willing to fail, you will not innovate. You will not succeed in a market that's as complicated as this one. It's complicated.
You just have to try. So I am grateful that I do have a CFO, CEO team who let us do that. But I think it is because we spend so much time, and we explain the potential end result of why we can just try this. But I mean, my team, I won't even tell you some of the stuff they do. They got blushes in a dollhouse. I walk by their desk. What is this? They're like, it's going to be content. It's going to be great content.
What would your advice be to, I don't care to whom, it doesn't matter, but leaders, which say I don't care to whom, I mean by title, on how to build a culture, even inside a massive organization, that incents and rewards that entrepreneurial approach, that innovative approach, rather than that creative approach, rather than stifles it. Because, you and I know a lot of CMOs across a lot of categories, and creativity is not rewarded. The org design does not facilitate it. It stifles it. Do you have a perspective, both from your experience on the agency side, looking at so many brands, but your experience in multiple client orgs?
I think for the team working, I think creativity can be so rewarding. And creativity is, I always try to explain to the team that it's not just I'm a good designer. It's not just I know what color to make this, or I know what I can. You don't have to be the creative director to be creative. And so I think first and foremost is explaining, what does creative look like?
Yeah.
And I think in each of your positions, from entry level to senior level, you can be creative in your approach. And certainly the way the world is changing so fast, like how can you do this differently? How can you do this better? And I try to show how rewarding creativity can feel, and how it can feel like you really have ownership in your position and your job. And it just, for me personally, especially as I look back at my career from the very beginning to now, it's, if I have a creative idea and it comes to fruition and I say that generally, man, it feels good. Mm-hmm. And so I think you want a team that is happy and engaged and rewarded and feel like they're contributing, again, and oftentimes, that's creativity. And so the more that we can reward people for their creative thinking, their creative approach, thinking differently, contributing from a creative point of view, and recognize that internally, that I felt has helped to fuel energy internally. And the CEO recognizes that. He sees when people are more engaged. When a team is more engaged, you just move faster. And I think the leadership team, you hope they can feel that energy. And oftentimes that comes from creative. Look at what we did together as a team that was different. My team loves to see when we get recognized, certainly by Forbes, or by another commentator on TikTok or Instagram that's talking about marketing. This woman, Grad Girl Marketing, came up to me. She has done a few posts about rare beauty, and I see when our teams get recognized, they love it. Mm-hmm. So I think that is a positivity that fuels across the board.
I was at a dinner last night, and I was sitting with the head of comms for a enormous organization, and she made me see something that I hadn't seen, and so all credit to her, keeping her anonymous just because I don't have permission to give her attribution. But we were talking about kind of, whether or not a mention about their business in People magazine or whatever media form. Mm-hmm. I was like, the people who count impressions, I was like, it's a meaningless metric. And she points out, she's like, yeah, it may not impact sales directly, but what it does impact is how the organization feels about the brand. And she did use People because they were a people-related brand, People magazine, that is. And she's like, and when somebody's mom sends them what they saw in People magazine about the brand, that feels amazing, which reminded me, I thought her point was so well taken, because one of the greatest impacts on sales is being able to recruit and retain talented human beings, like the best of class. Yeah. And that can come from things that might otherwise be perceived as vanity metrics.
Yeah, no, it's, I often think about our jobs and it gets stressful. The days are long. It's not for the faint. And
I think your job is the hardest job in business. The CMO's job, harder than anyone's.
It is. And but when you, so I try sometimes to we all do this, not to diminish it, but like, it's not ER, it's just lipstick. I always say, it's just lipstick. But the other day I was thinking, it's not just lipstick. It's impact, it's transformation, it's community, it's connection, like it's all these things. And so when you remind people that it's so much more than just hawking our wares, or trying to drive sales, that like when we do events and I see our community has become friends with one another, they've actually made friends because of our brand, or my team has connected or grown or felt fulfilled, not their fulfillment, but fulfilled by what they do every day. It is meaningful. It is powerful. So it's like, how can I, from the top down, make sure that not toxic positivity, but positive enthusiasm, but also with a dose of reality, like, yes, this is hard, but you know what? We're doing good stuff. We're making a difference. That helps. And when your mom does say, oh, I saw you on the Today Show, well, that does feel good. And so I think the more that you almost have to do marketing internally as much as externally, and that ultimately then helps with the CEO and the CFO as well, because they want their teams to be, you don't want to work in a miserable place. You want people to feel fulfilled and come in and...
Which, of course, is a greater challenge when your company has 500,000 employees, right? And you're so divorced, as so many of the companies in our audience do, right? They're in, or if not 500,000, then tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. And, I think about, William White at Walmart, where they employ, 2.5, 3 million people. And, that's a challenge of a whole different, as my grandmother would have said, bowl of borscht.
Yeah.
I want to ask you a question, again, beyond beauty, but using your experience within it, where you're such, you have such expertise and depth of experience. What, from your perspective, would you tell a tech company CEO, right, is the relationship between product and brand?
They're integral. They're so important. Brand gives the product dimension. Otherwise, without it, the product could be forgettable.
Yeah. I asked Jason Bunge, who, is the CMO at Hasbro, when he was on this show, the same question I'm going to ask you, which is, you have to choose. It's a binary, right? Binary choice here. Mediocre product, great brand. Great product, mediocre brand. Which do you think has more chance to be commercially viable?
Long-term or short-term?
Long-term.
Long-term. Than the
Let's build for the long term.
Great brand,
mediocre product, right?
But it's hard, but today, it's tough. It's tough to have. You have to have both.
Yeah.
Which, obviously,
it's
that's the obvious answer.
False binary.
Sure. But, great brand.
Yeah, and I think, it's fascinating to me when I talk to startup founders or folks from Silicon Valley Alley or wherever, and they're like, if I make a great product, I was like, that's Field of Dreams, Jack.
Field of Dreams, Jack.
And it's like, you make a great product and nobody knows about it. How are they going
to find it?
And then they say, but I'll put it in one person's hands and it'll spin. They'll love it and it'll spin out. I was like, well, that's marketing.
No. Yeah. Well,
that's social proof.
People say that, you've got Selena Gomez. Doesn't she just need to post one Instagram and then you're good to go? You got the easiest job in the world. It's not, I love Selena and my goodness, we're so grateful for her community. But no, that's not the case.
Do you think you could convince Selena to promote the book I wrote 6 years ago? Because I think that would give me a pop. I've been waiting for Seth Rogen to do it, but he hasn't done it yet.
We'll do a massive influencer CD.
Yeah, I can't. I digress. Okay. One of the things, I was listening to your conversation with John Evans on his wonderful Uncensored CMO show. Second best.
Oh, wait. Of course. You're my favorite podcast.
Yeah. And there was something you said that I took a note to talk to you about this, which is, I think one of the things a lot of CEOs who are hiring CMOs do not understand is that there are multiple types of CMOs and that different types of CMOs are better suited to specific businesses than others.
Okay.
And I'm wondering what your perspective is.
What did I say?
I don't remember specifically, but I wonder what your perspective is, and maybe let's just start with beauty CMO. And it kind of ties to my question earlier about, what can other brands learn from how fast this category moves?
Yes.
If we say, okay, what are the qualities of a brilliant CMO in beauty that maybe don't fit in I'm making an automotive category?
Well, I don't think that way. As I think through the answer, I don't think maybe there aren't much. There shouldn't be any differences. I think all marketers should be insatiably curious because the landscape is changing so much. My gosh, we can't assume We cannot assume we know how to do what we're doing. If anyone says, "Oh, absolutely, I know the answer," how do you know? How do you know that is fundamentally is going to work? Now, we can't show those. We can't. You can only tell that to so many people. You have to gain people's, trust and get the budget and say. But my goodness, with the best of my ability, I'm confident that this will succeed, but do I know 100%? No. So you have to be so curious and pay attention to everything.
Actually,
around
I want to both push and pull a little bit on something you said, because we can't assume we know what we're doing.
Or we know the answer.
Because I think that
I know what I'm doing, certainly.
But I think that's important. I want to get back to that in 2 seconds, which is, I think what you mean is we can't assume we're going to know what works in a world that's changing so fast.
Can we edit that so I don't sound like I don't know what I'm doing?
Yeah, I want to stick with it. But yes, we can if you're uncomfortable with where we go.
No,
it's
fine.
But you know what you're doing. You can't know what's going to work. What do you think, if you were to leave beauty tomorrow and go to automotive, what would you bring that's like, I know what I'm doing. I may not have category expertise, but I know what I'm doing.
But there are fundamentals. Exactly. A product is a product. A community is a community. But I think the importance of building community, the importance of understanding your target audience and what they need and what they want, and having that empathy and compassion to market to them. Just because marketing has changed so much that it really is a conversation. And that's like, it doesn't sound that revolutionary to say, but it's true. You have to understand where people are coming from and put yourself in their shoes to be able to market to them. And I think beauty does do that very well. And because we listen and we learn and we pay attention and we get to know them, because honestly, so much of our teams are consumers ourselves, gets back to the answer sort of right in front of you. So having that empathy, that compassion, but then that curiosity to pay attention to not only paying attention to attention, but what's driving purchase, what's driving action. You can never rest on your laurels and just assume.
Yeah,
that's the biggest. And man, that is something I would never do. I have never done because I get excited by the changing world around me. And so I think the fact that I know that we don't ultimately know what's going to work, that's what makes our jobs exciting. And I think you could bring that sort of passion and curiosity to any industry. And then you have to have a brain. You have the critical thing, just have the ability to think critically and not assume.
I don't know how to phrase this. What I was about to say, and it's wrong, is there a point where you have to stop being curious? And what I actually
and go pencils down.
And go pencils down.
Yes, of course.
Like how, right? In a world where you have to be doing, if it's on the front page of Forbes, it's relevant to marketing, right? Whether it's global affairs, politics, lifestyle, it's relevant to marketing because it's where paying attention to attention.
Yes.
Those stories are where attention is going, and where attention goes influences behavior for better or worse. I've completely forgotten my question. What was I asking? Did anybody pay attention to me? Because I didn't. Pencils down.
Pencils down.
Right?
Yes. How do you decide? Because you could think things till the end of time.
And
right. Well, that makes me crazy as well. You got to go. You got to do stuff.
And being a great CMO, like every great strategist, requires sacrifice.
Sure.
How do you deal with deciding what not to do?
It's back to understanding what your brand stands for, what your product is trying to communicate, and is it doing the best it can? And then you just have to have a gut and say, all right, we're good. Let's go. Mm-hmm. And that is... I do have that conversation sometimes with my creative team, who I have the utmost respect and love for. But I'm like, you got to go pencils down. We have looked at this enough. And I think sometimes we have a very collaborative team, which I'm sure a lot of companies do. And there's a lot of points of view start to weigh in. And when so many points of view start to weigh in, because everyone has that equal curiosity and excitement, it can sometimes weigh down or water down an idea. And then it suddenly doesn't become as timely relevant from a timely stance. It just becomes more universally relevant.
Yeah.
And so I think it's up to the CMO to be able to say, okay, we're good. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I try to do that.
Yeah. It's really hard.
I think when people say, oh God, Katie, like I'm very warm and nice. Hopefully my team would think so. But when it's time to get serious, it's like, okay.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
It's, I'm reminded when you talked about everybody having an opinion that so often, that's why we started the show, right? Which is a lot of CEOs and CFOs have opinions about marketing, but they're grounded in nothing.
Or my daughter said we should do that.
Exactly. My 12-year-old daughter didn't like the ad. Well, that's cool, but we're going after 44-year-old men.
Right. But then also sometimes when I do get those comments, I have to say I do take a pause and they think, okay, hold on, why? Or if someone doesn't understand something, because I think we are so close to everything that I do value where other members of my teams perhaps will, or even anywhere, will say, oh, I'm not going to listen to that. It's like, whoa, hold on. That could be representative of our community or the general population. Like, let's stop and actually consider
because
that comment.
while we analyze in every frame metaphorically, they just see the whole and they're not really paying attention to it. It's just
sometimes those one-off comments are actually quite important.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we're kind of getting towards the end here, and I want to ask you, and thank you again for being with me.
I am so grateful.
I want to ask you kind of a series of questions, quick answers. All right, you ready?
Okay.
Marketing is
a conversation.
I really love that, but when you said it before, do you think it's a conversation for every category? I mean, it
depends. If you want to engage with your audience and a community.
I mean, it's certainly a conversation in B2B.
It is a conversation in beauty.
Yeah.
Because you can inform, you can educate your consumer, but my gosh, you don't have the final say. Like they could come back and say, I don't like this, I prefer this, or you need to change this. And we listen.
But what about categories where detergent, right? Where the product isn't changing with frequency. They're not introducing new SKUs with the rapidity and frequency that you all are. Is it a conversation for
But why couldn't it be?
Well,
why couldn't it be? Yeah. Because I think the people doing laundry, I mean, some love it, myself included. I love laundry. Like, I don't know.
I love to vacuum.
I do too.
I was just trading texts with the CMO of Electrolux, and I told him he makes my favorite vacuum.
I love it so much. I love our jobs. It's fun to be able to do. Well, why couldn't it be? And I think if you think about Tide through the lens of how do you speak directly with your community and vice versa, and like that could inform even better marketing strategies. So why can't it be? Why do we have to think that we are these behemoth companies that push out messages?
I mean,
it's not the way.
Honestly,
it's not the way the world is going.
Honestly, shifted my perspective a little bit. Not only why couldn't it be, but shouldn't it be?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And you know what popped into my head was, have you seen the Empire State Building's TikTok?
Yes, of course.
It's so phenomenal. And I'm like, if you can humanize an edifice.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And the thing is, it's not just Gen Z on TikTok. Everyone is consuming media that way.
I tend to think of myself as Gen X with a Gen Z mindset.
I am right there with you. I am the same.
Yeah.
100%.
Year one Gen X.
I am Gen X. Yeah.
All right. So a brand is?
A promise, but a promise kept consistently, because you can't go back. You can't waver in that brand promise. That will water it down, and then you will lose. You will lose that connection, and your marketing will become more difficult, because if you break that brand promise and you're trying to have this marketing as a conversation, why would they listen to you? Why would they talk back?
You are the second CMO, and in my life, to like a lot of people, not just CMOs, say a brand is a promise. When William White, CMO at Walmart, was on the show, he said a brand is a promise kept. And you're the second one to say it. And I think that third word is everything.
Yes.
Because a brand isn't a promise. It is a promise kept. Because if it's a promise unkept, it's an empty promise, and then it's a shitty brand.
Right. And
it's such an important
and you
word.
have to, honestly, it's consistently, when you think about consistently, not in its frequency, but also consistently across all audiences, all people with whom your brand engages, your employees, all stakeholders, employees, creators, community, customers, retailers, whomever, you truly do have to live and breathe it, because I think the marketing then born out of that consistent brand is so much better.
Yeah.
And I'm going to sound so Midwestern saying this, but I'm proudly from St. Louis, but it's like cookies. When they're baked with love, they just taste better.
I kind of like mass-produced cookies sometimes. But I'm sure somebody loved it
Chips
originally.
Ahoy, call us later.
All right, the hardest part of being a CMO.
We love Oreos too.
I do.
I know.
Oreos.
Okay. Well,
But your point is well made.
But you know what I'm
yes,
saying.
I do. Yes,
We
I
just
do.
I love everything.
The hardest part of being a CMO?
Ay, ay, ay.
That could be the answer right there.
Gosh. The hardest part of being a CMO, I mean, there's the easy answer, and that's the world is changing, the landscape is changing. How do we know? We never know what's going to work. I think the hardest part about being a CMO is educating, engaging with your team, and making sure that everyone feels not just your direct marketing team, but then cross-functionally as well.
Yeah, because if it's just the direct marketing team, that's the hardest part of being a leader.
That's the hardest part of being a leader.
But as a CMO,
yes.
you got to think horizontally.
Yes. And that is not easy.
No.
Because I think also, especially if you're a brand that does play so much in social media and that becomes sort of your biggest marketing driver, everyone thinks if they have an Instagram account, and I don't mean to insult anyone, but they also think they too can do your job.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so I do take the time to educate that this is our social media strategy. Let me walk you through sort of our strategic roadmap and how we came to this, and that you can't just have tactic soup of we're going to do a bunch of things, or the other thing is I try to educate on how do we not follow other brands in our industry. If we continue to look over our shoulder and, they did this, they did that, why aren't we doing this, Katie? Why aren't we doing that? Whoa, that's what gets difficult, because then you become not a brand promise consistently kept. Then you just become doing the next best thing.
Yeah. I mean,
and I think that's exciting to people, but it doesn't always mean that it's right for the brand. And so that cross-functional and then team education and making sure everyone feels engaged and rewarded is tough.
Yeah.
But also one of the things that I like the most.
I mean, managing humans at any sized organization is as hard as selling to and convincing humans.
Yeah. And I do believe that great ideas come from everywhere.
Yeah.
And so I respect people's ideas and wanting to I respect their ideas and I want everyone to participate in marketing. Truly. I love it. Everyone can be a part of the marketing organization and our brainstorms, and that happens.
Which is say anything that, Scott, your CEO says, and certainly Selena says, but also your customer reps or anybody in a physical store says, is having some effect on whether somebody does or doesn't buy now or later.
Usually their opinion comes from their own human experience, and we are marketing to humans and we forget that. So you have to take into consideration people's own human experience to inform your marketing strategy, because that is who we are marketing to.
Brian Morrissey a few years ago said something that I have quoted over and over again, which is, it goes to the beginning of our conversation. I don't even know if we were on camera yet. We were talking about, data and how we've given up judgment to data. And Brian said something very close to the effect of human beings have become an aggregation of data points to be sliced and diced in the hopes of capturing attention. And his point, right, which is we see the data point, we don't see the human being. I think you've heard me use the metaphor of modern medicine, which has become so specialized. People treat the condition and the circumstance and nobody sees the patient. No.
But you could say that for any industry almost.
I think you can. Yeah. And I think as marketers, it's one of our biggest challenges.
Yeah. That's what, and I know, and you can cut this, but I know we're supposed to talk broadly and not just about rare beauty. But I will say one thing, that when I first met Selena and I said, and I was interviewing? It was early 2019. And I said, but why do you want to do this? Why do you want to create a beauty brand? And I knew her rationale and how she had felt bad. The media had made her feel bad about the way she looked, and she wanted to break down standards of perfection within beauty industry and all that. But then she said something to me that really struck me. And she said, I want to create a place where people feel welcome. And that word welcome, and working in the beauty industry for 25 plus years, I thought, there's a lot of wonderful things in beauty, but they've never said that. I've never felt welcome. Inclusive, yes, thank God. Self-expression, yes. Empowerment, yes. Wonderful things. But welcome, like truly, come sit with us. not really. And so that was special. And so that I when she said that, I knew, okay, there's really cool things that we can do with that to marketing to humans.
Making people feel welcome is a good brief.
Yeah.
And everything follows from that.
Yes.
Katie Welch, thank you so much for being here.
Seth, I am so grateful. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Hey, everybody, thank you for listening to Forbes, the CEO's Guide to Marketing. Smash that subscribe button. Give it 6 or 7 stars, even if it only goes up to 5. And because I listened to John's podcast, I know now to ask for your reviews because they make a big difference in helping others who might benefit from it. See ya.